Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Big East Rewind. My name is Chuck Everson, and my co-host and partner is Sonny Spera. How are you, Sonny?
I'm doing great, Chuck. We got a good one today, man. We're heading to the Northeast.
We're going up to Providence, to P-Town, with
That's right.
two Providence legends from University of Providence, Providence College, right? Or University, I'm not even sure anymore. It's changed. College.
Not big time yet.
I always screw that up, and I've spent a lot of time there over the last few years. My daughter played there. I loved the town. We had a great time. We had a great time in that town. So with us today is a guy that I had the pleasure of playing with for a couple of weeks in Yugoslavia, and I have had the pleasure of playing against one of the best defensive players ever to come out of the Big East. A very, very good guy, good friend of mine, Harold Starks. How are you, Harold?
Doing good, Chuck. Good to see you.
You too, pal. You too. And also, Harold brought with him today a guy that was the Mr. Indiana back in the day, and also was the Player of the Year, USA Today Player of the Year, coming out of high school, Mr. Delray Brooks. How are you, Delray?
All right, Chuck. How are you?
Good.
One of two high school people invited to the Olympic tryouts. He and Danny Manning. Let's not forget it. That's a big time fact.
Yeah, that's big time, man.
Yeah.
The only other high school player of the year that we had on so far, Delray, so you know you're in good company, is Bill Raftery. So, Bill came on, and we didn't have any idea how good he was until we started doing our research. So
yeah, that's the first I've heard of that, and I've known Bill forever.
Yeah. He was pretty good. He doesn't like to talk too much about himself, but he was
so humble.
a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So. Right. All right, so let's start out, Harold. Let me ask you. Growing up, I know you're from the city. I know you grew up in Harlem on 114th Street, right? And then you went from there. You wound up going to school in North Andover, Massachusetts, at the Brooks School. Correct. Tell us about that. Tell us about growing up in Harlem first, and then making that transition to the Brooks School in Massachusetts.
It was. Growing up back then, it was a tough time growing up, but you really didn't know it until you probably were able to remove yourself, because it just seemed natural. That was the environment we grew up in. Didn't know any better. So, I'm very proud of where I'm from, but I noticed a lot of the differences after I left and went away for high school and came home. Then I was able, I had a different perspective then, and really hit home what type of place it was, and how different it was from the rest of the world.
But when you went away to school, right? By yourself?
Correct. So
that's a huge change. And you were 8th grade, 9th grade? What grade were you in?
I was in the 9th grade.
Yeah.
Left home at age 14.
Wow.
So
that's tough.
Very young, very naive, had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was sort of like camp for the first 2 weeks, You live in a dorm, you got a dorm master, you got the cafeteria, the big wooden tables.
Weather's nice.
The weather, animals, and my story was after 2 weeks, I said, I've had enough. This is camp. I'm good. I want to go home.
Right.
And I called home, and my mom, she was like delighted. She was a school teacher. She said she missed me. I was the youngest, not the baby, but the youngest. And she said, what's the matter? I said, I want to come home. She said, okay, hold on. Your dad wants to talk to you. So I said, okay. So my father got on the phone and said, what's the matter? I said, I want to come home. He said, okay, well, if you have enough money to come home, come on home. Otherwise, here's your mother. So my mother got on the phone and she said, what did he say? I said, Dad said I can't come home. She said, I didn't hear him say that. I go, Mom, he knows I have $13. That is not getting me home from North Andover, Mass. So he basically told me I'm not coming home. I'm glad he did say that. It was the best experience of my life.
That had to be, coming from where you grew up, Harold, that had to be a culture shock, going to that school where there's 350 students and then there's only 5 African-American students there, correct?
Absolutely.
So what was that like going into that environment? And
like a fly in the milk. What's going on? That's tough.
Yeah.
It was, you had to get, I think, that saying that goes, if you live in New York, you can live anywhere, and I think growing up in Harlem really helped me as far as being able to cope with the different things that were happening at the school, being a freshman, being 14 years old and dealing with some of the things people would say to me or try and do to me. I think my upbringing really helped me. I had no problems at all taking care of myself.
That's great.
Did the contrast of cultures, Harold, help you out down the road as you got into work after leaving basketball and some of the positions that you've had with Hofstra and now at Providence? Did dealing with different types of people, tell us about how that kind of, I guess, made you more well-rounded than the average guy, right?
Yeah, I would say it's all about relationships. And, again, a small school, 350 kids, you basically get to know everyone. And, again, totally different backgrounds. And so a lot of times I always say, how do you break down those barriers? You get to know someone and you talk to them and you find out, how they grew up versus how you grew up, what's their culture like, and so you get to learn things about each other and you become friends. So that has definitely helped me in my life when you usually my working life has always been one of many, not many African Americans along my professional career. So it's helped being able to talk to people and know the importance of a relationship, which that's what I do today. I'm in athletic development, and it's all about relationships if you are looking for people to support your cause. So,
right. Well, I know being around you, I know what kind of guy you are, and I know how you get along with and treat people. And the reason I asked that question is I came from a background which was probably a third Hispanic, a third African American, a third white. And everybody I know that went to school in Brentwood and Long Island come out of there and they do well in business and stuff because nothing's thrown at them that they haven't seen and grew up with before. And so you have an understanding of what the other person is dealing with. And that putting all of that together made for, great business sense. And that's really the reason why I asked you that. So I was curious to hear what you had to say about that.
Yeah.
So Delray, talk to us a little bit about yourself. Now, you came out of Indiana. You had a lot of expectations put on you, right?
And yeah, I guess so. Being ranked how I was coming out of high school, the expectations. I don't think anyone had higher expectations than I had for myself. So, and then having to make the decision to leave Indiana, which wasn't an easy one. But being able to come to a place like Providence College and playing for Coach Pitino was really a blessing for me, and was able to develop a lifelong relationship with Coach and with the players that I played with at Providence.
And when you went to Indiana, because you played for Coach Knight, right?
Yes.
And so in getting talk about just making that decision. Did you feel pressure because you were Mr. Indiana? You had to go to Indiana University. I know Isaiah Thomas made the call. I mean, did you feel that, or how was that decision made?
I didn't feel that. I often tell people that having too many schools to choose from is almost as bad as not having any to choose from, because you automatically have to eliminate some schools that may have been a better situation for you, just because of the sheer numbers. And I grew up about 35 miles from Notre Dame and was very, very close to going to the University of Notre Dame. And but when I went on the campus at Indiana, it was everything I envisioned a college campus to be from when I was a little boy. So I really fell in love with the campus and felt like I could play anywhere in the country. And that was probably, the decision why I made the decision to go to Indiana, not because I was from Indiana or I felt pressure to go there.
Now, when you left and you went to first you had to put in the fact that you were leaving, right? You had to say, listen, I'm transferring. Right. Then you started another recruitment process. And I was reading something that, you know, it was a natural, oh, okay, so Notre Dame and North Carolina State were in the mix. Are they in the mix? Like, are they front runners? But I think your father made some comments like, let's open it up a little. What'd you think?
Well, you know, I wanted to go to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame at that time, or at least that's the story they told me, they weren't taking transfers, or maybe they just weren't taking me. But so that was out. And then I used to go to 5-Star every summer, 5-Star basketball camp, and my dad and I maintained a close relationship with Howard Garfinkel, the individual that ran 5-Star basketball camp, and he said Providence would be a good place for him. And I said, Providence? Like, who? And then my dad said, it's in the Big East. I said, oh, okay, because, you know, the Big East was the Big East back then. I said, okay, now I'm interested in Coach Pitino's the coach. And I said, oh, yeah, I definitely want to go and check that out. That sounds like that could be the place for me. And they were playing Villanova the night of my visit. And I just could not believe at how hard they played, how enthusiastic everybody was. 5 minutes into the game, I knew that this is where I was going to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you went right to Rick. Now, Harold, you started with Coach Mulaney, right?
I did.
And so you were part of that transition too with Coach Pitino. Talk about that transition, because that's not an easy thing to do for a lot of big schools.
No, you know, it was two great coaches, right? Two great coaches, and two Hall of Famers in my mind. Two different styles of basketball.
Totally.
Love learning from Coach Mulaney, and just listening to him was awesome. Again, he probably had forgotten more than I even know today about the game of basketball. And then we get Coach Pitino, who comes in, young, fiery, go get him, night and day. I mean, night and day. But it was a smooth transition with Coach Pitino coming in. You know, we bought into whatever he was selling immediately. You know, it didn't take a lot of time for him to win us over. But we had probably a good 6 months or so with him, with getting in shape, you know, the summer and all that before we came back for school. So it seemed like we knew him for a while before we actually started playing for him. So
how did you break through the barrier, Harold, of, you know, when one coach leaves and another coach comes in, now there's a whole new staff, okay? And he's got his guys that he recruited versus the guys that were there. Sometimes the guys that were there with the old regime get kind of lost in the shuffle. How did you find that you broke through that and were able to play as much as you did the last 2 years with Rick?
You know, I would say, like I said earlier, relationships, you know, and when he came with the new staff, he did retain Bill Donlin. Coach Donlin stayed on staff. So he was a guy that, you know, the players returning knew. But for me, it was about relationships. I got along very well with the new staff. You know, it wasn't about here they come, am I going to play? You know, I don't play his style or anything like that. It wasn't that. And I would say the other three seniors with me, very similar. We all bought into it, which I think helped him turn it around so quickly. You know, when he came, he wasn't saying, I got to get rid of the old guys and bring in my own players, you know.
Right.
The team was his players. We were his players. At that point in time, he was the coach, we were the players. So it wasn't one of those, give him 4 or 5 years to get his guys in and then he'll win. That's not what he would have said, and that's not what we thought. You know, we bought into the pressing system and the running and everything else, and it was sort of a breath of fresh air, and a little success helps you buy in a little bit more.
Well, the thing that I think garnered so much attention, and it has to do with both. I know both of you guys. I know Delray. I heard Pitino in an interview talk about the weight loss and the fitness that he demanded, and I know Billy Donovan garnered a lot of attention because I think it was a little more visible. But he did talk about about you losing a certain amount of weight. Harold, was that same thing for you? Like, was it a fitness situation, or was he just talking, hey, you guys got to get in this type of weight zone? Let's answer that first, Harold.
No, not for me personally. It wasn't a fitness thing. You know, I was always in pretty good playing shape, I thought. And but he had a different level as far as conditioning went.
Mhm.
So again, I thought I was in shape. I thought I could run a good 3-mile clip. No, not when you're timed. So and I don't think there were too many guys who were really out of shape, you know, and
Mhm.
I think we all bought into playing that style of ball, pressing, and it made practice a whole lot of fun. I tell you that. The games were nothing as far as conditioning. You know, we're in such good shape that, you know, we could run all day in a game because you got a timeout. There was a halftime. There was all sorts of things that happened in a game that did not occur in practice. I can guarantee you that.
How about you, D? How was the conditioning change with go from Coach Knight to Coach Patino?
Well, it was just like Harold said, it's different. Like I've always, you know, I never considered myself out of shape for playing basketball, especially at that point in my life. But conditioning and being in shape, Coach Patino took it to a whole nother level. And it wasn't just about conditioning before the season, it was conditioning during the season. I think my junior year, I weighed 205 when the season started. When the season ended, I was 178 pounds. So you get in shape, but you have fun. You have fun doing it. Like Harold said, we look forward to practice every day. We look forward to the games. It was just it became a lifestyle for us.
Now, did you guys overlap a little bit?
I practiced with Harold for a whole half a season.
That's what I thought.
So
you came in January?
We never played in games together, but we used to practice and used to pair up a lot at practice. And there was one particular practice where Harold and I were going against each other, and we were both so exhausted. You know, it would have been like a cartoon watching, you know, animation moving in slow motion, and everybody was doing it. And Coach Patino happened to see us out of the corner of his eye. And he just went ballistic, you know, talking about you guys are supposed to, one guy is the captain, the other guy is supposed to be this great player. You guys look like whatever. We were just so exhausted that we couldn't move.
That's great. That's awesome. So was Coach Knight, was he demanding of that stuff too in terms of your conditioning, or what was that environment like?
You know, Coach Knight, his was more of a mental fatigue. I really didn't get. I wasn't physically challenged as much as just mentally challenged. You know, and it's trying to differentiate between the two, but it was just different. You know, most of the things we did at practice in Indiana were half court, ran a motion offense. So, and I had to guard Steve Alford for the whole 2.5 hour practice. So I probably went, you know, ran into 100 screens.
I was going to say you probably hit 500
practice,
screens a day.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, it was just a different, it was just, you know, a different system, a different way of doing things.
And then Patino opened the floor with the 3-point shot. Right, changed the game, made the game more spacing. Was way ahead of his time.
Right, yeah.
Way ahead.
A couple of days, I've just watched some old games the last couple of days, and wow, we got after it. You know, there was never any time where we weren't moving.
I just a quick plug. You guys know where Coach Patino started his college coaching, right? No,
yes.
Anybody? Syracuse, is that what you both said?
Yeah,
Syracuse.
Yeah,
okay, good. All right, Chuck, you got
it. I want to go back just a tick for a second, Harold. On your path to get to Providence, I know you did some New York City Summer League stuff where you played against guys like Pearl and Walter and people like that. You know, I don't know if you played in the Rutger or where you played in the city. I'd like to hear about that, but. How did you play AAU back then, or did you just play summer league? Were you able to come home from Brooks School to play, you know, either AAU or summer league or camps? How did you get recruited, and who was involved?
I think we didn't even call it AAU back then, right? I think it was it started with summer league basketball, and then you played in a few winter leagues. But to your question, Chuck, yes, played in the Rucker, played everywhere. And quick story about when I went away to the Brooks School. I was on an academic scholarship, not an athletic scholarship. So I wasn't there to play ball or anything like that. They didn't even know I played basketball when I went there. So I had to play football, because when you get there, you have to play a sport. And they said, what sports you want to play? I said, I don't know. What do you have? And they said, well, we have soccer. So no soccer. I said, cross country. I said, well, what's that? So when you run about 3 or 4 miles a day. I go, no, I'm okay. Don't need to
I'm with you.
Did enough of that back home running, So then they said football. I go, okay, I'll play football. Have you played football before? I said, yeah, in the streets of New York, you run, you dodge a cab, you dodge a bus, yeah, that was football for us. So on the weekends, I was actually taking a bus on Saturday afternoon out of Boston, going home so that I can play in the Winter League, Rucker Winter League on Sunday, and then jump on a bus and come back Sunday night, just so I can be in school. And I got called into the office. The football coach said, you can't go home every weekend. You have to play football. I said, we got 3 more weeks. We're in the playoffs. Can I do it for the next 3 weekends and then I'll be back? So they let me do that. They didn't let me do it again after that time. But so that was, basically my transition. I went, I played against everybody in the city, went to Brooks. And my story goes, I was watching TV on Monday night. Didn't we have Monday night? That was Big East on Monday night, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Big Monday.
I had one of those JVC jukeboxes with the little TV that popped up. And I'm in bed under the covers because you're not supposed to have a TV. And I'm watching this thing called Big East basketball. I said, what the heck is this? Never heard of it before. And I remember it was Georgetown playing against Boston College. The halftime show was Dave Gavitt and John Bagley showing people the correct technique on how to shoot a foul shot. And I said right then and there, that's what I want to do. I want to play in the Big East. I don't care what team, I'm going to play in the Big East. This is cool. There's this thing that's on TV and you can watch it and your friends and family can watch you play basketball. So that was my dream, playing in the Big East. I didn't have a favorite team back then as far as the college team went. So fortunate enough to end up at Providence.
What were some of the recruiting people? Who were some of the teams that were involved with your recruitment that caught your eye or that you had interest in? Or
in the Big East, recruited by Providence, St. John's, UConn, Seton Hall, BC. No Syracuse, no interest.
Exactly. I didn't have you on your visit, or else you would have been to Providence. It's just simple.
You guys had Pearl. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think I would have seen a lot of the court back then. So no Georgetown, but and again, the Big East was smaller back then. So
was UConn in the mix pretty serious, being geographically close to Providence, or no?
Excuse me.
Was UConn like a serious consideration?
It was. I was offered the same day that they offered Earl Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And Earl Kelly was in the office before me, and he came out, we were friendly, and he left, and they called me in and said, we want to offer you, but we want to let you know that Earl just signed. So I said, okay, well, why am I coming? I mean, he's a high school player in Connecticut, averaged 30 points a game. So I go, nah, I'm okay. And at Providence, the guy ahead of me, Ricky Tucker, was a great player at Providence.
Oh, Ricky, yeah.
Right? Ricky was going to be a senior. So I said, that works.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky's I'll be there 1 year with Ricky, and then the show will be mine. So, and again, a lot of the New England schools, BU, Northeastern, all of those. And I actually turned down Rick Pitino to play for him at BU. Mm-hmm. But couldn't get away from him totally. So,
right. So what about you, Delray? I mean, when you think of somebody who grew up in Indiana, at least, what I think of is a guy that's shooting jumpers on his barn door somewhere in the backwood, in
Hoosiers,
the back,
Jimmy Chitwood.
fields. Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, the Hoosiers movie, kind of. Now, I know that's not the case because you were not known as a jump shooter. You had an all around game. You were inside, outside, slasher. You did all that kind of stuff. So, how did playing there? You went to Indiana. What came into the decision for you to leave Indiana and then look at in the Big East? And we heard how you got to Providence, but what was part of the decision? Was it a joint decision between you and coach, or was something that you felt that this wasn't for me, I had to get out?
Yeah, it was me. Coach didn't want me to leave. I think he's quoted as saying I was one of the nicest kids he's ever had. But I needed to be somewhere where I was playing all the time. I figured out that I didn't spend any of my career growing up sitting, and it just was not comfortable for me. And I felt like if I could be somewhere else playing, that's where I needed to be. And so that's how the decision came about for me to leave Indiana. Well, I liked the school, liked everybody there. I just wanted to play more, and felt like for me to play more that I had to find another school to go to.
So compare for us, if you will, D. What do you think the biggest differences are between the Big East and the Big Ten as far as playing the games?
Well, I think, they say the Big Ten is physical and more rugged league, and they say the Big East is probably back at that time more open and running more. For me, how we played at Providence was different than how we played in Indiana. But from a physicality standpoint, there really wasn't much difference. I can remember playing against Georgetown and going from one side of the court to the other, where I actually got bumped. I mean, physically checked like I was playing hockey 4 or 5 times before I got to the other side of the floor. So it was just as physical playing in the Big East as it was the Big Ten.
So the definition of bump for people who are listening, that's a polite way to say body check.
Yes.
The guy is going through the lane. He gets bumped.
That's right.
We had Andre Hawkins on, remember? And he talked about bumping the cutter. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like when I watch basketball now and I see and they just let people run around. I'm like, no, we wouldn't let you do that. That
Not in the Big East. I know that for sure.
It's a different game.
Different game. So Harold, let me ask you now. Okay, so now you're in the Big East. You're with Providence, and we have the Big East tournament. We've talked about this on other shows. I want to get your take on a couple of things that Gavitt did to kind of make sure that everybody knew each other in the Big East. We had the luncheons. You remember those at the Garden? When we were gonna play in the Big East tournament, and you'd have a couple of guys from each team around the table. Talk about that, your experience that you've had with that, because everybody says the same thing. The Georgetown guys really didn't participate as far as talking to any of their neighbors at the table, like the rest of us did. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, which something that they don't do today, but I think for us it was a chance just to be friendly with your opponents, because we didn't do it on the court, right? And you didn't see each other afterwards unless you live near someone. But, for me, it was, I can say hello to Pearl, I can say hello to you, Chuck, Harold Jensen, whomever. It was a chance just to say, man, how you doing? What's going on? What are you doing this summer? I'm going to go home, I'm going to work, whatever. So I it was special because of that, and to sit there and see your peers get their awards was also great.
How about you, D? Did you take part in that too, the Big East Luncheon?
Yeah, it was, it was something different because, in the Big Ten, we didn't have a tournament back then. So the Big East tournament was something new for me. And like Harold said, to be able to talk to other guys that you play against and find out what their plans are for the summer and just to see what was going on with them, I thought it was a nice touch to the end of the season.
And to be playing in the greatest arena of all in Madison Square Garden was special.
Without question. When I played there, I played in the Garden as a freshman at Indiana. We played in the championship game of the NIT against UCLA and Reggie Miller. So that was my first experience in the Garden. And then, transferring to Providence and then able to go back there every year while at Providence was special.
It's special.
The other thing that they did, Harold, was they had these trips that they took guys from different teams and we would go play like a globetrotting thing. And we've talked about this on the show over several episodes. But you and I got the chance to play together in Yugoslavia, before they split into Serbia and Croatia, right? So,
Correct.
Harold Jensen, I think, was on that team, and Steve Wright from your squad was on that team.
Yep.
And we got the opportunity to play the great Drazen Petrovic, God rest his soul. And that guy, I mean, he was like the European Pete Maravich. Would you agree with that?
100%.
So Harold, here's your chance. Since Chuck's been, Chuck talks a lot, but if there's anything you'd like to share about this Yugoslavia trip that may or may not reflect really nice on Chuck, here's your forum.
Harold knows better than that.
Whatever happened in Yugoslavia stays in Yugoslavia.
Right. But the one thing I wanted to talk about with you is we played Petro the one night, and I think he had, if my memory serves, I think he had like 65 on us or something ridiculous like that. I've never seen, and with no 3-point line. So no. I've never seen a guy shoot the ball like that because he hardly took layups. Talk about that, because listen, you're known for your defensive prowess. I mean, you and Gene Smith, who we're going to have on in a couple days, are probably the two, and Billy Goodwin. Those three guys off the top of my head were the three lockdown defenders. And guys on our team, when they know that you were checking some, Gary McLean or even Dwayne knew that you were checking them, they go, okay, well, I'm going to get assists today. I'm not going to score too many points because I got Starks on me. So talk about what it was like to guard Petro.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Chuck, but so we're at Kennedy Airport in New York, right, ready to fly over. And, we think we're hot stuff. We got our sweats on or whatever. Yep. And we bumped into an older gentleman, and he said, where you guys going? And we said, to Yugoslavia. We're going to go to Zagreb. And we're an all-star basketball team. And he goes, we have best player ever. And we're like, what are you talking about? He goes,
what are you talking about?
We got a guy, he's the best player ever. And the old man said, he will score 50 on you. And we said, we don't know who this guy is. And we're the Big East All-Stars. No one's scoring 50 on us. So he said, he lived in a town of our first game, this older gentleman, and he said, if he doesn't score 50, I'll invite your entire team to my house for dinner. So we said, okay, yeah, we won't go because he ain't scoring 50. So we have this game, and we travel with the team, everyone except Drazen. He traveled with the coach and the owner in the car. He didn't get on the bus.
He did not get on the bus, right.
So the story goes, we're in a little small gym, as you guys know, when you travel, and we're sitting there and it's 95 degrees out. And this guy walks out on the court with he had on the suede Adidas and the wool socks, Pistol Pete, right? And we're teasing. Look, this guy thinks he's Pistol Pete with a heavy leather ball, and he's shooting around. And we're like, this guy, he must want to play in the other team. He's by himself. The other team is somewhere else. Go out for jump ball. He walks out on the court, right? And I go out and I go, well, I have to guard him. He's the shortest guy on the team. It's 6'5". Right. He's the point guard. I'm like, well, I'm the shortest guy on our team. I got to guard him. No problem. I'm a defensive guy. I'll shut him down. So he didn't score 50 that game, Chuck. He scored 52. Okay. That memory is burnt into my mind, believe me. So I am yelling at the referees the entire game, as Chuck said and Delray said earlier, screen after screen after screen, and I'm like, they're illegal, they're hip checking me. This is not right. And the referees are looking at me like, no speak English, whatever. So I'm sort of not proud, but happy to say that he didn't score all 52 on me.
No, he shared the milk for
when
sure.
I fouled out, he was probably in his 30s by then. Okay, so the other 20 he got on somebody else. I don't know. It must have been Harold
Ricky
Jensen.
Burton or somebody, I think.
I don't know who was guarding him then, but I was
Ronnie
on the
Rowan.
bench. And I'm leaving the court, and I am pissed because I didn't want to foul out, right? And I'm yelling at the ref, that's wrong. They hip checked me the whole game, and the referee looked at me and said, "Tell it to your mother." And I said,
"He spoke English."
English. He knew what I was saying.
Perfect English, son.
Oh my God. So that was our introduction to Drazen. And I remember at the time they said, and there's a better player on the junior team. And we're like, there can't be. That's just no one better than this guy. And it was Vlade.
Yeah.
It was Vlade. So yeah.
We got an introduction to European basketball, Sonny. And what a good time we had, Harold, on that trip. I mean, yes. The guys that we had, one of your guys was with us, son. Derek Brower was with us, and
DB.
Harold Jensen from Nova was there. And
I'm sure Derek kept it fun and light.
Well, he certainly did. And one of the funniest moments that for me was I always wore a headset, so I would come in the gym. And the crowd was already seated at the gym, right, Harold? The bus would roll up, and the place would already be packed. Yep. So I have my headset on. I'm kind of bopping to the music, and I walk out where I think I'm going into the locker room, and I'm outside the arena in like the desert somewhere. And I'm pounding on the door to get in. I can't get in. Somebody from the stands comes down and lets me in. All the guys were already in the locker room. He says something in Yugoslavian, and the entire place is pointing and kind of laughing at me. So without saying a word, I point down that old trick, make the guy look down, and you flick him in the nose. The place goes wild, okay? So now they introduced the starting lineup. I just kind of wave. I go in the locker room. I think nothing of it. So Jensen gets introduced, and then I get introduced, and the place goes crazy. And Jensen goes, "What the hell is this?" I go, "They love me in Europe, Harold. Don't you know? They love me in Yugoslavia." But it was because I was messing with that guy. We had a blast. Those trips, everybody I've talked to that's been on one of those trips has always had a great time. And it was so good to, be with you and some of the other guys from the Big East, because then you got friends that, we've been in touch, off and on for a long time from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delray, talk about the Final Four, what it was like to get Providence to the Final Four, 87. I was a Syracuse guy. I was there. I watched you guys play. It's the first Final Four I ever attended. And that was a big moment, right? And I know they talked about Ernie D and going and former Providence Point, but it had been a long time. And now you have Patino, you have Donovan, you have yourself, you have now a new tradition. Talk about what that meant to the school, to you, the whole experience.
Yeah, it was just, it was unbelievable. The older we get, or the older I get, it just seems even more unbelievable. We were just, I think we were a team of destiny at that time. We endured a great deal of adversity. I think everybody that was on that team, how our career started and how we were starting to garner some success in our basketball career. And, it was after Coach had just lost an infant child.
Yes.
So we were going through a lot. And I think the turning point, and back then, you could host the NCAA tournament and play on your home floor. So we had to go and play UAB on their home court. And so we were there and we were going through walkthrough or practice. And, we were all just feeling really down because of what Coach had just experienced. We all felt it. And he stopped it as we got on the bus and he said, "I understand you guys are feeling bad for me." He said, "But the best thing that you can do for me is appreciate the opportunity, embrace it, and play the best basketball that you could possibly play. And that's how you'll help me through this." And he told the bus driver to turn the music up. And it just so happened that this group called Club Nouveau had just did a remake of a song, and Lean on Me song.
Lean on Me. Yep.
And it just, we just all embraced it. We sang our hearts out with this song. And from that point on, it was just, it was no stopping us. The only team, I think, in the country that could beat us is the team that we played in the Final Four. Syracuse had our number that year. The closest we came to beating them was a 4-point loss at home that year, and we just didn't have an answer for them. And so our journey ended, but what a journey it was.
But talk about the game before that. Who'd you play before that?
Played Georgetown.
Yes, you did.
Played Georgetown, and
it had to feel good.
Yeah, it did. And Jeff Van Gundy talks about this. He said it's the greatest coaching job he's ever witnessed. Coach, but after we beat Alabama, where me, Billy, and Pop Lewis, God rest his soul, we had just killed him from the 3-point line. And he told us, he said, we're not taking any threes against Georgetown. And we all looked at him like, what? He said, they just beat us by 25 points in the Big East tournament. We're not taking any threes. They're going to be expecting us to do that. We're going inside. And we said, oh, okay, whatever you say is what we're going to do. And we did it, and it caught Georgetown totally off guard, and we ended up beating them by, it wasn't close. We ended up beating them by 20-something. It's the first, maybe the only game. Yeah, it's definitely the only game I played at Providence where I didn't score a point. I did not score in that game, and it was still the happy. I try to tell people it's about the team, and it's about winning. It was the happiest I've been in my life, and I didn't score a point, and no one loved to score more than me. So, but it was just an unbelievable ride.
Would part of you, D, would have liked to have gotten a chance to play against your old team? They were in that Final Four as well. Was there a piece of you that said, man, I hope I get a chance to play those guys in the finals?
Chuck, I'll let you answer that question for me.
I already knew the answer. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, of course I wanted a shot at them.
I think that's everybody's dream.
In the worst way.
That's competitive. That's competitive basketball. I wouldn't expect any other answer.
I had to ask that question, though, Dave.
No, I know. I know.
So Harold, talk about who are the guys that gave you the biggest problems when you were playing during the Big East time? Some stories about, things that happened either in the Big East tournament or during the season of guys that gave you a tough time. And also talk about some of the teams that gave Providence fits, if you would.
Well, let's start with the individual first. I would say for me, it was Earl Kelly. He was pretty good offensively, and he gave me fits. I can honestly say that not many guys gave me fits playing against him, but Earl did, and I respected him for that. And again, it was tough to lose to him, or very tough to have him score on me, because I don't like when people score on me. That was just my mentality. But I think, as we talked about earlier, the Big East tournament and having the banquet and things like that, and you got to talk to him, and we were friendly. So made for, it was good competition on the court that way.
Look at some of the guards you played against: Michael Adams.
Yes.
McLean, Pearl. I mean.
Yes.
Mark Jackson.
Yes.
There's like Hall of Fame guys,
Yep. No, yeah. And again, I took that challenge on every night. And, that was the Big East back then, just with that lineup. You didn't take a night off in the Big East in a for the first 10 years of the conference. You got beat up every night. And I enjoyed Pearl a little bit. Pearl, I used to always tell people, when the lights are on, he's very dangerous, and he knew when a game was on TV, and he would showtime. And then I knew I could pressure him from when he got the ball, taking it out all the way up court. But if we got near, the top of the key, I would back off, because I did not want to be a highlight reel, and that's when he made his highlights, Just talk to Gene Smith when he's on in a couple of weeks. So, but
Dwight Wilbur said that same thing. He gave him space at the top of the cave for the exact same reason you said.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can tell. Again, I knew Pearl from growing up, so it wasn't like I only played against them at Syracuse. I played against them, throughout my youth in the summer league. So we knew each other that way. So I think most of the guys a lot of guys in the Big East I knew that way just from playing against summer league ball, whatever the heck we called it back then. It wasn't AAU, but yeah, it was good. It was good. Earl was tough.
How about you, Delray? What were some of the marquee matchups that you like to see or didn't want to see?
Yeah, from a team standpoint, I think Syracuse and Pittsburgh gave us fits. And from an individual playing against somebody, Sherman Douglas was a tough out for us. And he, I didn't mind guarding people that would change directions and try to get you, because I just kept my head on your waist. But Sherman Douglas wasn't like that. He just went one direction, and it was hard to stay in front. And then when you did halfway get in front of him, he just threw it up the rim to Ron Cycli or Derek Coleman. So that was a difficult matchup for us. But I would say Syracuse and Pittsburgh, and Georgetown was also difficult. But we love playing against Georgetown for some reason. And I tell people all the time I was 500 against Georgetown, and I'll take that record.
How about you, Harold? How was some of the teams that you remember preparing for?
They were all good back then, right? They're all good. And I remember my freshman year, not so much the team, but playing at the Dome. People ask me stories about, I think there were 29,000 people there, whatever. It was a lot of people. And I'm a freshman and I'm in awe, and I'm sitting on my bench and I hear these noises. The game starts and I kept hearing pop, pop, pop. And I'm like, what is that noise? And you turn around and they're throwing tangerines at us. The crowd, and I'm going, this is ridiculous. This is the Big East. It was probably one of my first Big East games. And
that's crazy.
They were like, no, Syracuse, that's just what we do here. The rest of the league isn't that way. And I'm like, I hope not. But that was a very tough place to play until you got used to it, just because, as you know, Sonny, it's a huge place, the football field. And so
you get lost in there.
You can. And I think we got wrapped up a lot with the size of the arena, even with the shoot around. You go in there and you're like, oh my God, look how big this place is. And
a lot of empty space.
If you don't shake that off by game time, you're in trouble. So Syracuse was tough. And Georgetown, because they were like relentless, and having Patrick in the middle, if you go by Gene Smith, it wasn't going to be an easy layup, no matter what you did. So those two teams gave us fits, during my
Ray, what was some of the tough arenas that you played in?
I would echo Syracuse was probably the toughest place for us to play for the same reasons that Harold said. But other than that, I'm from Indiana where, we play in big gyms. So that wasn't, my high school gym seats 7,500 people. So it wasn't, and it's the 7th largest in the state. So there's 6 other gyms in the state of Indiana that are larger than the one I played in. So that, playing in front of large crowds really wasn't new to me. So, but Syracuse, playing at Syracuse, it was a tough place to play. It's probably the toughest place in the Big East for me anyway, during my stint at Providence.
Okay, let's talk a little bit now about post basketball. Talk about Delray, talk about the relationship that you formed with Harold, even though you only practiced with him for a while, because sometimes life hits us all hard in different ways. And I know you went through a lot of stuff, and everybody does, but I know it was a lot of stuff, and people close to you passed and things like that. And I know Harold was there for you. Talk about, how teammates and you guys being really not teammates, but you were, I guess, because you were practicing with them. But talk about that relationship and how he helped you.
Well, I think, like Harold said, it's about relationships. And when you meet someone that has a lot of the same attributes or characteristics or ideas that you have, you sort of gravitate to each other. And, I gravitated toward Harold right away, even though he talked about me when I first got there about my hair and having a Jerry curl. I put all that aside, and as you can see, I've cut all my hair off since then. But we just developed a very, very close relationship, and I got close to Patrick Harrington from going to 5-star, and then learning that him and Harold went to high school together. So it was just mutual friends, and just thinking along the same lines, feeling about certain situations the same. And so we just became really close, and someone that I really looked up to, and like you said, could lean on during times of difficulty, someone that was always in your corner, regardless of what you was going through. And I appreciate him for that, and always will.
It's interesting because normally that bond kind of forms as your teammates and going through, a tough season, or the Big East, for example, like where your guys are in the battles and you got to depend on each other and everybody else who's on the floor with you to get through what you have to get through. But this more or less came about after basketball, sort of, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Well, no, not totally. Because even though we developed our friendship while he was in school and I was in school, even though I wasn't playing, I was still practicing with the team. And you got to understand, it was coming from Indiana University to Providence College. I was in a little bit of a culture shock, going from 35,000 students to 3,500. So, and Harold was there. I hung out with Harold his senior year, and I was a sophomore. Even though I wasn't playing, we still hung out together and did things together. So our friendship started primarily at the day I walked on campus at Providence.
Harold, let's kind of and try to wrap things up a little bit. Talk about one of the greatest memories you remember of the Big East. Just one, either a game, a moment, a bus ride, you name it. Wide open. D, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
Okay. So many.
Use a couple.
I think for me, when I usually get asked that question, I just say my biggest memory are my memories of my teammates and the relationships and the bonds that were created. Was not part of any championship runs or anything like that during my career. But the brotherhood that was created with a lot of the guys, just like Delray said, he came in January and we were teammates. We just didn't play together, but we were teammates. We spent a lot of time together, and he was definitely part of helping change the culture at Providence College when he came, when Rick was there for his first year. So we were in it together. We just never wore the uniform at the same time and played. So, for me, that question always gets back to all the friends that I made while I was there, and all the friendships that I have now today.
All right, super. How about you, D?
Yeah, it's the same. That our run to the Final Four is probably the biggest memory, and I think people don't understand this, but our run to the Final Four had 4 extra players that weren't in uniform. And that was the seniors that had graduated the year before we went. Whatever we do, as far as that Final Four team, we include them. We feel that they were a part of our success. And so, like Harold said, just the relationships that I have with guys on the team, we miss each other dearly. And when we get a chance to see each other, we really rejoice and cherish that time together. And so that would have to be the biggest memory for me, is just the relationships and our run to the Final Four.
Well, guys, I think one last question, I think, and then we'll wrap it up. What are you doing now, Delray? Are you coaching?
No, I'm teaching. I'm teaching PE and health in school right now. Not coaching right now, so just teaching, and that's about it.
Okay, and Harold, talk about what you're doing now. I know you're at Providence. You mentioned that, and you're the alumni director, right, with alumni relations, and also the fundraising efforts that you guys do at school, right?
You got it. Yeah. So again, back at the alma mater, love it. It's nothing like Friar Town. Every day is game day, and just been doing all of my athletic development, just raising money for the department as well as men's basketball over the last 13, 14 years here. So
you got a good coach there now. He's a good man.
Yeah, he's
Coach
great.
Cooley.
Good man.
One other thing I want to add, just to relate to the story, Coach Pitino is still coaching. He's a coach at Iona.
Yeah.
And my youngest son is playing for him at Iona.
Oh,
how great is that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And my oldest son was a manager for him at Louisville for 4 years.
How about that?
That's what it's all about, man.
If that's not family, I don't know what is, Delray.
Right? Exactly.
Well, that's a great right there. That's a great way to wrap this up.
Makes you feel
guys,
good.
Thank you so much, Harold and Delray, for being with us. Really enjoyed our conversation. We went the whole gamut of virtually everything. So appreciate you guys coming out and spending time with us. It's always great to share experiences with other guys who played in the Big East as we did.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.
Thank you, Sonny.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Steve. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care now.
See you guys.
You've been listening to the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Spera. The Big East Rewind is all about old school Big East as told from the perspective of the people that lived it. Guys that played, guys that coached, officials, and media personnel. We try to hit all different angles. We are also available on where you receive your podcast, on Spotify, on Apple, iTunes, that kind of thing. And also we have we're available on YouTube weekly. We come out on YouTube with our episodes. You can reach Sonny or myself on Messenger, on Facebook, or you can email the show at bigeastrewind@gmail.com. And we welcome all comments and suggestions. We've gotten a few, and we appreciate those, and we will answer them and get back to you. And we've taken a few of them into account, and we've made some changes as we've gone along. And, of course, as always, the Big East Rewind is produced by Daryl Gurney and Nick Corus. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great day.
Peace out.